Well, the idea came about, I think, because I'm English and I love France. And there was this opportunity to come and work with Accentus. And I thought to myself, well, what would be an interesting program to do here? Benjamin Britten and Francis Poulenc are two of my preferred 20th century favorite composers. Then there was this slightly more unusual situation, this unusual composer, Pierre Villette. And I became interested in it and found all the music and the scores, found the odd manuscript, went to see his wife, his widow, and then made a recording of the music. And I've always been aware that it's popular music in England amongst, good choirs. It's not easy to sing. But to the best of my knowledge, it's just not known here in Paris or in France. And so it's strange, but I thought, well, this is the perfect music to join Benjamin Britten and Francis Poulenc, because it's French, and it's French music that French people don't really know. So this was how the program came about. The most famous piece of Pierre Villette is his hymn à la Vierge. And that piece, I think, has become famous in England and America, largely because it was performed in Cambridge, at King's College, Cambridge, on the service of the Nine Letters and Carols. And of course, once a piece of music like that, and it's beautiful. It's very, it's tuneful. It's got beautiful harmonies. It's very accessible, and so once it's performed in that occasion, which of course is broadcast around the world to, 15 million people or something live on television and radio, I think that probably made at least that one piece famous of Villette. And you see, for me as a student, I was 19 or something when I first heard that. It then made me think, okay, so what else is there written by this chap? What else did he do? And so I started digging around. I was aware of one piece which we're singing with accentus called Attende Domine. I had a score of that and I thought, this is lovely music. I like this. I mean, look, there's obviously much stronger affinity between Villette and Poulenc. Britten, he's different. I wouldn't try to link him particularly. But what's interesting, I think, about Poulenc and Villette is this. I mean, Poulenc went a heck of a long way in terms of the adventurism of his harmonic language, of his chords. He sat at the piano, it's so obvious, and conjured up these most amazing harmonies. Anyway, I think Villette, my expression would be Villette at his best, which I think is O Sacrum Convivium and Attende Domine. This is sort of Poulenc, the English expression, Poulenc on steroids. Poulenc gone a bit crazy, in a good way. So Villette goes a little bit further than Poulenc did. But interestingly, when you hear the early Villette type pieces, Hymn à la Vierge, or we're singing this piece, O Salutaris Hostias, it's good, but it's not quite as adventurous. But when you come to Attende Domine, then you hear more of Poulenc in that, and indeed Messiaen. But both Poulenc and Britten had their other halves, their partners, who were both singers. So Bernach was obviously a singer, and Peter Pears was a singer. And I think that must have been, for both of these composers, a very interesting inspiration to have, if you like, the love of your life, your best friend, as somebody that could sing the music you were writing. And that's quite a profound thing, I think, when a composer writes a song for a person and for a voice. I think the first thing to say about medieval English, and it must be the same as in medieval French or medieval German or medieval any language in the world, in Europe, we didn't have YouTube. It's as simple as that. So really, we're not totally sure, are we? We've got good ideas, but we're not absolutely sure how things sounded. But the key thing for any linguistic situation is simply that it is agreed, that everybody can say, yeah, this is how we're doing it. And that requires somebody, whether that be the language coach, the conductor, another singer, to just be so sure of how they want it to sound, and then everybody can fit around that. And so, as in any language, whether it be medieval English or medieval French, there's going to be vowels and sounds and diphthongs and couleurs and everything, which we've got to all agree to actually give the text a truth. So in the last week, with working with accentus, I've worked in a way that I often work. I take every group of musicians as excellent musicians and just make music. So there's nothing specific in the way I've done things with accentus. But I suppose my buzzword, which happens to be a French word, and I use it around the world, is bouche fermée. Because we achieve far more in rehearsals as singers, professional singers, in écouting and listening than we do singing too loudly and too much. The other thing I do is I tend to sing in a circle and put myself in that circle. This is so all the singers can watch each other, see each other, and begin to get to know each other musically as much as possible through the new repertoire they may be singing. I also use a piano, largely because I believe that the initial stages of learning new music, even with professionals, is hugely helped if somebody is able to play the keyboard in a certain way, which encourages them to listen for the intonation of the chords. Now, this means not necessarily playing the chords in, say, Poulenc or Villette that harmonize a certain line, an alto or a tenor part. What it means is harmonizing those lines in certain ways that actually make the human ear listen to possible harmonic implications of a melody. Now, this can be enormously helpful for explaining to singers how certain notes need to feel higher or lower in the chords. Now, it's even more critical when you're looking at music of Villette and Poulenc particularly. Both of these were composers who so clearly awoke in the morning, had a café noir, sat at the keyboard and improvisé at the keyboard, all of their music. And so that feeling of the keys and the harmonies coming from the hands is something that I feel is very critical to help with the singers. Now, in terms of the placing of the singers, this is an interesting discussion point which can be changed depending on repertoire, and also at what stage you might decide in rehearsal to mix the singers up. You've got to gauge with your choir, first of all, how comfortable, how confident they are to sing the music in their own voice parts. And then you've got to work out at what stage in the rehearsal process does it then make sense to split them all up so they sit in sort of essay, soprano, alto, tenor, bass groups, or however you're choosing to do it. Because there's obviously, for the oral perception of the singers, trying to get them so they understand the music, they've got to understand their own part. And then as much as possible, they've then got to understand every other part. This is obvious. But the methods by which we use to achieve that, of mixing in different groups, is a very interesting one. I think all we can do as musicians who happen to be conductors is try to transmit what it is that we love about the music we're performing. And at any given moment, any piece of music that I'm conducting would be my favorite piece in the world. It's the only way to operate. And so that's what I hope to always pass on to all the musicians, singers I work with, that if I believe it's the greatest piece right at this precise second that we're doing, I hope to lead them on that same journey.